Hello, everyone. This is Do a Dreamer. So, yes, today myself and the Jedi Bender has returned again to talk about the 100th episode of Death Battle. And this episode is going to feature a battle that we've seen many years before. It's going to be Sonic the Hedgehog versus Mario all over again. And before we go on, again, I'm Dual Dreamer, and this is my good and best friend. I almost called you your old name, Richard.
It's okay.
The Jedi Bender. What's up, Jedi?
Hey everyone, how y'all doing? Before we get started, I want to give a little plug here. Thank you all for over 200 subscribers on my new channel, the Jedi Bender. It means a lot to me.
Wow.
Yes,
Awesome.
200. We're back, everybody. We're back in style. So, yes, happy to be here doing predictions again on an old classic matchup, but a good classic matchup.
Didn't I tell you you're going to climb up real fast?
Yes, you did. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, you did tell me I was going to climb fast. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Yes. So, yeah, it was announced right after the live action, our first ever live action death battle between Daredevil versus Nightwing, which was awesome, by the way. It was a great episode. And my palms were sweating with anticipation on what was going to be 100. And when it said classic battle, I thought it was, I'm going to be honest here, I thought it was going to be Goku versus Superman all over again.
I'm sure a lot of people had that idea in mind. I don't think you were the only one. I like when they said classic, Goku versus Superman definitely was in everyone's minds, but thankfully they did confirm that no, it's not Goku versus Superman again, but still, not everyone knows that, so you can't really blame them for having that idea in their head.
Yeah, because I thought it was the bait and switch kind of thing. Like, oh no,
Yeah,
it's not going to be that, but then all of a sudden it is
it
that.
is. Yeah, exactly.
So it was revealed it's going to be Sonic versus Mario all over again. I was thinking like it was a remaster, kind of like with Samus versus Boba Fett, but then a lot of people were telling me this is not a remaster. And they even said like this is not really a rematch. This is like a redo.
Yeah, Ben Singer went to Twitter, not after long that was announced, and he basically broke this fight down and said, okay, so first thing, when we're doing this again, it's not a remaster, it's not a continuation, and it is not a rematch. It is 100% a kind of like a 2.0 version. Like, it's basically they're redoing this fight again, but this time with the new rules and analysis that they use for their modern fights. So it's pretty much like a do-over.
Yeah, so, but I know some people are probably going to say, well, let's just ignore the old one. Well, in my opinion, it's still a valid version of the fight, the first one, because I still like the first one.
Same here. The first one is not perfect. I'll give you that. Like, it is definitely it holds up decently well, but yes, I would say like next to Goku versus Superman 1, this was one of their most popular fights and videos of season 1. So they already got to do Goku versus Superman again, which also kind of felt like a redo of the first one. So why would they not be not allowed to be why would they not be allowed to do Mario vs. Sonic in that same treatment?
Right. Excellent. And I know there are people out there who are not happy about that.
No.
And here's the thing. I understand why they're very unhappy because they feel like this was a waste of an opportunity for a 100th episode by redoing one of their old episodes. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I totally understand that. I'm not even gonna say like, oh, you guys are overreacting and stuff like that because it's really understandable. But
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I completely agree. There were a lot of hopes for what the 100 episode could have been. Goku versus Superman 3, Unicron versus Galactus, Darkseid versus Thanos. There was a long list of big, ambitious fights that could have really represented the 100th episode. But in my opinion, I actually think this is a good idea because, again, how many times do you see somebody celebrating their 100th episode, not just in Versus series, but whenever a TV show hits their 100th episode, it's always a time to look back, reflect, and maybe do something over again with what you've learned now. So why can Death Battle not be allowed to do that? So I'm actually okay with it, and I think it's a great opportunity to see how far they've come in 100 episodes.
Yes, and plus, these are the top iconic video game characters.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
everyone knows, even a little child. If I say Mario, they'll know it. If I say Sonic, they'll know it.
Yes, when you talk about video games in general, like these two are the icons. These two have been the poster boys for the past almost over 30 years now, ever since they were created, because that's how popular these two are, and they're engraved with society. So much like Goku versus Superman and how they're popular, Mario versus Sonic are the opposite. They're popular in terms of video games, like they're juggernauts, and they're still going to this day. Like they haven't showed any signs of slowing down or not being able to adapt to the times.
Well, I wouldn't say that because Sonic has had
Yeah,
some
yeah.
unfortunate years.
Yes, he has. Okay, yeah, he has. But again, like you can't put these two down. Like they're still gonna
No.
keep going. So
Right.
yeah, you're totally right. Like when you think video game characters, these are the first two that come to mind.
Right. So anyway, before we get into the like just talk about the new one, let's talk about the old episode of Mario versus Sonic on Death Battle. I believe it was on the first season, I believe.
Yeah, okay. It's been too long since I've seen it, so I can't remember what number it was. I really don't know. I do know it was in season 1. It was sort of in the middle of season 1, if I remember correctly.
Right, right.
I'm
A-
sure we'll have the information displayed here somewhere.
Yes. And the thing was, when I first heard about this, it was something I've always wanted to see. A lot of people always wanted to see this episode come together to have two of the biggest video game juggernauts finally doing battle together. And I even remember one time I debated with a friend of mine in college on who would win, with Mario or Sonic, and I was rooting for Sonic. But here's the thing: I love both Sonic and Mario almost equally, you
Yeah.
know. But I really felt like, yeah, Sonic has the abilities to defeat Mario and whatnot. So, and I was glad that a show like Death Battle was able to do the analysis and the research and actually paint a picture on what they believe would happen between these two.
Right. No, yeah. I remember seeing that fight too. During high school when I was first introduced to Death Battle, and like you, like Mario versus Sonic was a very popular topic that I always wanted answered because I grew up with both. I was a '90s kid, so I grew up with Sonic, but my father and I were very fond and still are fond of Mario to this day. So I love both of them by default. I've played all of their games. I've seen their cartoons. I've even seen some horrible things they've been in because that's how much I love them. But the point is that I've wanted to see that debate answered myself. And when Death Battle answered it in that episode, I felt like, okay, like this was very good. It really showed, and as you said, painted a picture on how you take these two juggernauts and you find out which one of them would win. So
Right.
yeah, that episode does hold a special place in my heart, as one of the best episodes, in my opinion, of season 1.
Right. And I was just looking at it. It was actually the 13th episode.
Oh wow, yeah, that makes
13th
sense.
episode, and it was released in 2011. So
Oh my god, wow, that's so strange. Like, so damn, 7 years. That's crazy.
I know, where did the time go?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no. So that episode, like going back and talking about it, it definitely, as I said, it's aged decently, for being 7 years old, and times have changed in Death Battle. But I definitely think, like, if anything holds up particularly well in that whole fight, it's got to be the animation portion for me because it was so epic and just displaying all of their abilities, seeing them cancel each other out, point by point, and then having the conclusion be, okay, all of their abilities exhausted, and Sonic just uses his speed to put Mario down. So I think the animation still holds up tremendously well.
Right. And speaking of the animation, it was animated by Ben Singer himself too.
Yes, which was I bet was a huge undertaking for him. But yeah, no, like as I said, he did a great job with that animation, and I really liked it. It is one of my favorite animations from that time. Even though, yeah, compared to today, it's not. It doesn't even come close to holding a candle to the newer 2D fights these days, because they're allowed to be longer and they're allowed to be more epic in scale than that fight was.
Right. But anyway, and also with the research, like I
Yeah.
know back in the day the research was pretty much like, talk about their abilities and stuff. They didn't go too much into science and comparison to real life stuff.
No, it was
But
very basic.
yeah, it was very basic, but it was still fun to watch. When they were given certain things to Mario and certain things to Sonic, and I've always had this belief with when it comes to Mario, it's really hard to pinpoint or choose what powers to use, because throughout the many video games he's been in, not just in the classic Super Mario Brothers, but also in Mario Galaxy, Mario Sunshine, and even the RPG, Mario RPG, and not to mention Paper Mario, which they consider that as somewhat canon as well. It's like, how can we, do Mario justice?
Yeah, no, I hear you loud and clear on that one. Like, Mario had so many games at that point. It still has many games to this day. Like, it's very hard to choose what to give him, what not to give him. Like, I mean, especially, and it's also very difficult, as you said, trying to do both characters justice, because I mean, with movie and TV and comic characters, there's some kind of common ground, but with video game characters like these two, they just keep coming out with more and more games, more abilities, more canon, what's not canon. It's crazy. It's all over the wall. So yeah, no, the basic research they gave for them back then, I thought it was fine. It was very simple. It was very easy to understand. They didn't go too far into it, I will admit that. But it really felt like, okay, for this type of a match, in their mind back then, it was just, okay, well, let's just treat it very down the middle. Like, let's give Mario this, let's give Sonic that, and fight here, and then let's just quickly go over who wins, and then boom, job done.
Right. And I think they were just mostly using powers that people are more familiar with. Like, for example, with Mario, they have him use the Fire Flower, they have him use the Magic Cape or the Tanuki suit.
Yeah.
With Sonic, his shields, and of course the Chaos Emeralds. So they were trying to use things that people are more familiar with, which I
Yeah.
thought that was understandable.
Yeah, very much was. One common complaint I saw back then, and I still kind of see to this day with that first matchup, is that they didn't give Sonic a lot of his other forms besides Super. He did have other forms at that time, but they just, as you said, they just chose to exclude that and give him just the basic stuff that we're familiar with. They didn't give him his dark form. They didn't give him his Excalibur form. They didn't even give him his Werehog form. They gave him virtually none of those other forms that he had, and they just chose to stick, which is what they would later do, what they did previously with Shadow the Hedgehog in Vegeta versus Shadow. They just gave them their super forms because that's what people know what they have the most. Like, they don't know about the other forms they have.
Yeah, so there's a lot to cover. There was a lot to cover, but now with the way they do things now, there's gonna be a lot to cover for Mario and Sonic if they're gonna do it with the new rules and new way of research and whatnot. And I'm really looking forward to hearing about what they're gonna use for science comparison with their abilities and whatnot. So
yeah, me too. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how they portray these characters now with everything they have at their disposal, and just how far they've come since 7 years ago.
yeah.